Unauthorized Opinions. We are here. We are queer. Get used to it. Just kidding. Don't want anyone to take that seriously right off the bat. We've shaved our heads in solidarity with Mark Carney, in solidarity with the Liberals, anti-Tesla voters, anti-Trump protesters, Pierre Poilievre lovers. We're all here in solidarity with you. We are a few days removed from the Canadian election. It didn't go the way a lot of people thought it would. A lot of people did think it would go this way. Pierre Poilievre delivered a lot of votes, but he did not get some of the coveted regions that would require him to win the election. Mark Carney, replacement for Justin Trudeau, got the boomers back. It only took, a few days to get the boomers back. In the East Coast, took a few days to get the recent diversity bringers back into the Liberal fold in the Greater Toronto area. Conservatives had even more votes than last time. Still lost. The far-left NDP group basically tanked themselves on purpose to help the Liberals. They knew the leader was going to be gone anyways. Tanks himself to help the Liberals. They get the votes. They win by a decent margin. What did the Conservative Party do? Did they say, you know what, we should have had better messaging. We should have had a little bit more stuff to say about immigration. We should have said more about, freehold housing as opposed to cramming people in townhouses. Did we say we should have been a little bit more friendly to the right-wing base who votes even further right? Should we have spoken nicer about Trump? They said none of that. They did nothing wrong if you asked the Conservative Party supporters of Canada. They blamed the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, for sandbagging them, even though, the equivalent of a governor of Ontario. They blamed him for criticizing them. And they blamed, the People's Party, the further right party, the actual only really right-wing party. People are going to say, I voted for them, of course, and I shill for them, which is, of course, not true. And they blamed all this stuff. They blamed the vote splitting. They blamed Doug Ford. They blamed the media for painting Pierre Poilievre as closer to Trump. All of these things, of course, are not true. They're not able to blame themselves and their lack of masculinity, their lack of actual having real policies, their lack of actually addressing what people have a problem with. So they did better than last time. It's still not good enough, but they did better. However, the leader of the party, Pierre Poilievre, lost his seat, which is hilarious, by the way, because he's supposed to be their savior. But we'll get to all that. What I want to say, though, is the Conservative Party obviously it doesn't have a Trump, but it doesn't even have a Matt Gaetz. It doesn't even have a face like Matt Gaetz it had. It doesn't have a Josh Hawley. It doesn't have a Senator Kennedy. It doesn't even have a Senator Cruz. It doesn't have a Marjorie Taylor Greene. It doesn't have a Ron DeSantis. It doesn't even have a Marco Rubio. Maybe we can get close to Marco Rubio. It doesn't have a Kristi Noem. It doesn't have very many people that you could point to in the United States. And the reason I'm pointing to these people is they have some sort of gumption and courage, right? And that's what the Canadian Conservative Party and its followers don't want to admit. Now, I'd say the women who are Canadian Conservative followers and voters, they should be very concerned. Why should they be concerned? Because their party is being led by just the least testosterone-filled guys you can possibly find. They should be concerned that the main conservative influencers are wienery guys who make excuses for everything. These people don't want to come out and say anything that could be considered mean. They're afraid of the CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Government Company. They're afraid of CTV News. They're afraid of left-wing Twitter. They're afraid of the journalists. They're just afraid. So they are afraid to touch any of the real problems that Canadians actually face because they just want to be safe. Oh, we have to be safe. We have to do other things that are safe. They've got to be safe. We don't want them to be safe anymore. We said, why are you being so safe for the election? They kept being safe. It's a travesty. They don't have any balls at all, is what we're saying here. And if you ask any person in Canada, no matter their race, because we have to get that out of the way, no matter their religion, everybody says the same things are the problem. It all comes from too much immigration, right? Friends of the show, we have black friends, we have Turkish friends, we have Dominican friends, we have Portuguese, Italian friends, we have half Japanese friends, we have other black friends. We've got everything, right? Irish, nobody cares about them. And we all say, we've got Indian friends who have been here for a very long time. They all say too many people, right? Too many people, too many Indians, too many Sikhs, all coming from this culture, and they're bringing cultural problems. We have Sikh gang wars, if you guys didn't know about this. We have gigantic pockets of Indians where nobody speaks English, if you guys didn't know about this. So everybody sees this as a problem. And the gigantic population spike makes it harder to find a job, makes it harder to find a house. And what do the Conservatives say? We're going to slightly reduce immigration to what it was before, even though we have way too many people here now, so we're just adding to it. And we just say, as the Conservatives, we just say, we're just going to build more stuff. So there's already insane traffic in Ontario. You can't get to a place that's 20 minutes away in less than an hour, right? They just say, we'll just build more stuff. We'll just widen the roads. Never happened in our lifetime, not going to happen. What do we're just going to build more schools. We're just going to build more stores. We're just going to build more hospitals. And we're just going to build more houses. The problem is none of this happens, and none of this ever happens, and never will. Hospitals is the closer you're going to get because they get so much money. But the hospital system, the emergency room system is terrible. You can't just add more people to that. The traffic, terrible. The roads are never going to be widened. The schools, I guess you could build more schools, but they've gone to shit. Trust me. The job market, oversaturated completely. Foreigners come in, undercut people by like $20,000. I wonder who they're going to hire. Temporary foreign workers. Government subsidized wages, get paid barely anything, taxpayer fills in the rest for the companies. Terrible. And then the houses they say they're going to build. Well, they say they're going to build houses, but it's going to be tiny slivers of townhouses and apartment buildings. Nobody wants to live in these for the rest of their lives. Nobody wants to live in these pockets of 10,000 immigrants where, sorry to tell you guys, there's garbage in the streets in these places. Sorry to tell you. I'm sorry this is mean. But this is why the Conservatives fail in their messaging. They're afraid to say anything that's a long stretch or a long distance away from what the Liberals say. And that's where they lose a lot of people who are further right, like myself. Or if you just want to say correct. But this is where they lose a lot of people. They're so afraid to do anything. And like the Liberals, they can't admit when they're wrong. Just like they're closer to the Liberals, and the Liberals are close. There's no party that's even as conservative as the American Democrats in Canada. That's just the sad truth of it. There isn't much to differentiate. Yes, he wanted to bring in all these taxes, these tax cuts, but when did Pierre Poilievre start saying these things? He had an entire campaign around carbon tax and Justin Trudeau. Trudeau gone, and as soon as Trudeau's gone, they cut the consumer carbon tax, and they're like, where the hell do we go now? So they started bringing out all these tax cuts and, these first home buyer tax cuts and cutting all this red tape and all these plans that they brought out in the 11th hour that they didn't mention before. Why didn't you guys mention it before? This is the prevailing reason why they don't do this. And I even have friends of mine who make this excuse for the Conservative Party. The idea here, and this is what they believe, this is what the Conservative Party of Canada believes. Pretend that you have more left-wing policies, and then when you get elected, by the way, we're going to put in these other policies. This is what they tell their people. We're just more moderate in our election until we get elected, then we'll do the rest. Never going to happen. The people running this party don't actually believe in these things. So only when they think they're going to lose an election, which they did lose, do they start saying, we're going to do this, that, and the other to try to appeal to the people who otherwise wouldn't vote for them? And they only did that when they absolutely were forced to, and it was too late. I'm sorry, it was too late. Nobody believes you, especially not me. You can't just say, Orange Man bad for 13 months, and then when the liberals are like, oh, Orange Man bad, but also no carbon tax, you can't just be like, oh, I've been right-wing this whole time, you guys. The Conservative Party doesn't want to say there's too many immigrants. They don't want to say we should bring it closer to zero or less than 100,000 even. They don't want to say outright that a man can't be a woman. He wants to say, oh, I only know of two genders. They don't want to say it's enough, it's crazy talk. They don't want to say people don't want to live in townhouses. They don't want to say a lot of stuff. And they definitely don't want to say that Trump's not that bad. We all have our problems with Trump. Everybody's got an issue with something he's doing. But if half of what Trump did made its way into Canada, we'd be far better off. But they don't want to say that. They want to say Orange Man bad because this is what they believe. The conservative influencers and the supporters want to believe so badly that the Conservative Party is just playing politics all the way up until the end. And when they get elected, that's when it's going to be super right-wing. And it's just not going to happen. So I want to bring up a few things now so you can see how the Conservative Party just refuses to take responsibility for themselves. First things first, Pierre Poilievre loses his seat, right? What do? They say, let's find a way to keep him in. So this guy named Damien Kurek out of Battle River Crowfoot in Alberta won his election with about 80% of the vote. They said, where can we get Poilievre in easily? They said, let's get this guy to step down. Let's give him, a subscription to a brothel. Let's give him an Uber Eats coupon. Let's give him maybe $100,000 in a sack with a dollar sign in it. Conjecture, Your Honor, hearsay. None of this is true. They got this guy to give up his seat and give it to Pierre Poilievre. He says it's a tremendous honor to bend over. He says it's a tremendous honor to basically, have his clothes cut off and his head shaved in the middle of the street, a la the Netherlands when they were liberated by the Americans under Nazi Germany. He's just willing to go in the street and take a beating with a large stick and bow at the behest of Pierre Poilievre for whatever reason, because he believes in him for some reason. And so they give this guy, they get this guy to concede his seat or just resign out of his seat, which will trigger a new election. So long story short, in this riding, in this district, this voting district where the Conservatives won by 80%, this guy is stepping down. And then that will trigger a special election, which Pierre Poilievre will now run in his place against somebody and probably win by 75% margin or something like that, by 50 points, 75 to 25, because a few people will be like, well, this is bullshit, but the rest of them will say, oh, conservative man, good. And that's hilarious. That's pathetic and hilarious. You lose, and then this is my belief. Nobody's forcing me to say this, Your Honor, but my belief is the Conservative Party is so weak that Pierre Poilievre and Andrew Scheer and these guys can bully them. I mean, this is what I mean by the women need to be concerned, because they look at Pierre Poilievre. You don't see a manly guy when you look at Pierre Poilievre. Let's be honest here. He used to wear his glasses and everything, which is fine. He used to be a little of a political nerd. I have no problem with that. He got his two stylists. He started working out. He started wearing the t-shirt under the suit jacket, got rid of the glasses, started wearing makeup and fake tans. He's super handsome, cool guy now. We all see through that. Number two guy, Andrew Scheer, who's allegedly going to be in charge of the Conservatives until Poilievre gets back into office. He's not much. You're not looking at him and being like, that's a tough guy. I'm so sorry to be mean, everybody. Not a tough guy. So he's bullying his way around too. And then after that, they have Melissa Landsman, who's a tiny, let's say, non-heterosexual woman, who's their go-to token, woman who checks off many boxes. And then they've got, after that, let's just say an alleged guy who is a Sikh guy. We're not naming who it is, but he allegedly lives in the same property with a guy who's allegedly a terrorist. We won't say who any of these people are, but these are the the big characters, the masculine leaders of the Conservative Party that bully people around and say, "Hey, please give up your seat for me, and I'm going to be in charge until these people are back in office." Not only should it goes without saying that men should look at this and be like, "Holy shit, what a bunch of female body parts," but women should look at this and say, "Would I follow a man like this? Would I date or marry a man like this? Is this a type of person that I want to lead me, or am I better off with somebody like, an orange man who might be bad, somebody closer to that, somebody like a Byron Donalds, somebody like that." I don't know. There's none of these people. It's hard to compare because there's none of these people in the Conservative Party. So they go and they get this guy to, sit in the streets and yell about how he's not worthy of Pierre Poilievre and give up his seat. And Pierre Poilievre says, "It is with humility and appreciation that I've accepted Damien Curek's offer to resign his seat in Battle River Crowfoot so that I can work to earn the support of citizens there to serve them in Parliament. Damien's selfless act to step aside temporarily as a member of Parliament shows his commitment in restoring Canada's promise. I will work to earn the trust of the good people of Battle River Crowfoot, and I will continue to the Liberal minority government to account until the next federal election." So Pierre's got a very large pension, right? As the rest of them do, as Jagmeet Singh does, as Trudeau does. And Pierre now has to tell his wife, "I lost my seat. I lost the election. Now we got to, I don't know if we're going to move to Alberta. I don't know if he's going to force his family to move to Alberta. And we got to take this sure thing victory and all this other crap where they're pretending to be super humble and restoring Canada's promise. You lost. Who is this guy who's just like, "Oh, Pierre, please take my seat"? That's why I gotta say he went out to the streets. They pelted him with tomatoes, and that's how they got him to give up his seat. Something that a woman named Susan Carroll pointed out in response. She's a cheeky retorter, her profile says. A quote from Pierre from 2023. "In the real world, if you don't do your job, you lose it." He lost his job, but in this case, in Pierre's real world, if you don't do your job, you lose your job, and then a friend of yours from across the country actually quits his job so that you can take his job, and then you, I don't know, drag him through the streets by chariot like a pope in the year 600 or something like that. I guess that's how it works in the real world. Now, I want to get over to the bad support of Canadian Conservative influencers. And it's been a long road coming for this for me. I've watched these people for, I want to say, 5 years now. I've talked to some of these people. By and large, their accounts are content stealing and quips. And you can say it's not content stealing when it's an embedded video. I get that. I get that you want to do commentary on it, but a lot of it is just straight clip stealing and adding your own commentary. And then the rest of it is, I don't want to just comment on somebody's stuff or retweet stuff because that doesn't feel like it's coming from me. So I'll embed the video. I'll make my commentary because most people aren't going to click on the name at the bottom there and click to go to the original post. It is news curation in a form that's extremely cheap and how should I say this, lazy, and that's how we build a wide audience. This is why so many you'll see somebody, they'll go from 10,000 to 100,000 because they're taking clips from other people. They're perpetually online, and this is how they gain a following. People will go to that because they see that they produce a lot of videos. So these are internet people through and through. And I've been watching them for 5 years. I've been holding my tongue for a long time. And I said, if Pierre Poilievre and these people tank this election, if they find a way to turn a massive majority, which is what it was supposed to be, they were supposed to have a huge majority, into a loss, it will be the worst campaign ever. And I'm saying if they end up losing it, it's because they have no messaging and they won't touch the real issues. Lo and behold, I am correct. I didn't want to be correct. I recognize the Conservative government is ever so slightly better than a Liberal government. Maybe let's go as high as 10 to 15% better, based on economic policy for the most part. But now I have to point out that these people suck. I have to. I would not be me I would not be Andrew Says if I came on here and was like, well, better luck next time, guys. You guys are all doing a great job. The Canadian conservative influencers, the ones that are constantly bootlicking for the party, are some of the biggest content stealers and losers we've ever seen. Now, every person I point out here isn't necessarily a content stealer. I'm not applying this label to these people specifically, but you will see by... I'm going to point out a few examples that came across my feed immediately after the election, and it's just, they might as well... When Pierre Poilievre is looking to walk across the street with his wife and there's a big puddle in the way, these people will form the human bridge so that his feet do not get wet. You know what I'm saying? So the first one is a guy I've never even heard of, and these people have huge followings. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, these people don't have any followings and there's no merit in it at all. What I'm saying is you get the bulk of your stuff from stealing other news and... embedding videos, and without other people's content, you would not have this following. That's what I'm saying. Because if you were to put this person just straight up on camera and to talk, or to write something, or to go out and produce something, they don't want to do that. So they want to go the easiest route, and I'm tired of pretending like these people aren't doing this. And that's just how it is. First thing I see the other day. Well, it's time, PPC, for your thoughts, says Concerned Canadian. PPC vote split tipped tight Ontario races in favor of Liberals. So right here, let's take a Juno News, whom I know the people who run this company. Let's take a clip from their news website. Don't link it at all. Just take somebody else's headline. What's the harm, right? Well, you're stopping people from going to this website. This would not pass in copyright claim trial. That's all I'm saying. But the messaging here, PPC vote split, tipped tight Ontario races in favor of Liberals. That's too bad. You can't force people to vote for whomever you want them to. And I said in response, I said maybe more Conservatives would vote for Pierre if he was brave enough to say the words like immigration. And a bunch of people agree with that. The point is immediately after the election, they don't say, let's look at what we did or didn't do. They say, PPC to blame. You guys need to agree with us. Just fall in line. But what if they just don't agree with you? You can't just say, vote for my person because I prefer him. It's the dumbest argument I'm hearing constantly, this vote splitting argument. What if the PPC people said, well, if you all just voted for our candidate, we would have won all these seats. If you guys just voted for, if all the Conservatives just voted for PPC, then you would have this right-wing government that you so covet. They don't want to come to this reality. They want to do this very basic, simple-minded thing of, oh, you're splitting the vote. You should choose my guy instead of the other side. So you should agree with me because I disagree with the other side. It's not how, you can't just control people like that. Because I can just say the same thing to you. If you want to win and you want the government you actually say that you want, which is much further right than the Conservative Party, why don't you just vote for these other people? Why don't you vote for the Christian Conservative Party? Why don't you just vote for, the Canadian Communist Party, if that's who you want? You can just say this about anyone. If you don't want to split the vote, then just vote for who I prefer. That's one of the bigger complaints immediately that we see. Now I got this other guy named Josh Ryan. This is a screenshot, so I'm pretty sure he's got a pretty good following too. I never heard of him. He responded to me on one of my posts that's basically the same as what I wrote there. I don't remember which one. He said, you voted in a man to be leader and prime minister when you had 3 women to choose from. You aren't the sharpest tack in the box. I'm pretty sure we spelled tack with a K, but that's fine. Maybe he's French. I think you should go look in a mirror and repeat. This is on the same post. I think you should go look in a mirror and repeat after me. The Liberals who brag about being for women voted in a man. Forgot that. Voted in man in to be leader. Josh, I'm going to tell you right now, the sting of the insult when you don't proofread your posts, he can't spell, is taken away. You just gotta just read it once, Josh. I'm telling you here. I think you should go look in the mirror and repeat after me. The Liberals who brag about being for women voted in a man to be leader after kicking numerous strong women out of their party. You sound ridiculous. So this is an allegedly conservative guy who's coming after me because based on my comments, even though I either he followed me or a bunch of people that he follows follow me. And this is one of these people that don't know, they don't know anything about you. They see a comment that's disagreeing with the Conservative Party, and therefore I must be a Liberal supporter. I must be. And then he goes on to make a very left-wing argument. He says, you brag about being for women, but voted a man to be leader. So he's saying I voted for Mark Carney, which I didn't, obviously, after kicking out numerous strong women from their party. So on one hand, you're saying that it's hypocritical. On one hand, he's saying that it's hypocritical for an alleged liberal such as myself. I'm wearing liberal red today. It's hypocritical of a liberal to vote for men when they say they're always for women, which is silly, right? It's silly to do that. But then he says they're kicking so many strong women out of their party. So which is it? Should people vote for women? Or is it a joke to... Is it like some sort of weird, silly movement to push women based on just being women? Or should they be supporting these strong women? Did the Conservative Party have a strong woman as the leader of the party? Was Melissa Lantsman chosen as the leader? Was the obese campaign manager, who clearly has a Dorito problem, was she put in as the leader of the party? Did you guys even put in Leslyn Lewis in any of the top positions? Of course you did not, because Conservatives don't believe, for the most part, in putting women in positions just for the sole purpose that they're women, for some sort of gender studies reward or some sort of woke, positioning. But he's saying they're kicking all these strong women out of their party. Oh my goodness. But at the same time, you didn't vote for any women. So which is it, Josh? So this is another one of the immediate rebuttals. He doesn't even know that I'm not a liberal, and he just goes, oh, you must be sexist. Even though, calling people sexist is stupid, you must be sexist. He's trying to do the thing where you work it against him. He didn't do it well, and he didn't realize, even though I think he soon realized after that I wasn't liberal, and he immediately blocked me. As soon as I clicked on those comments, I saw that he blocked me. So my guess, Josh made these stupid comments, was embarrassed, and then blocked me, but then didn't want to delete them because, people would have saw that it had a couple likes on it. Semper Fi, Josh. This is Jing Lai He, another guy I've never heard of, but he has a strong following of 6,500 people, a U of T conservative chess player. Wait a second. University of Toronto, is that what it says? Yeah. Big up University of Toronto here, bud. My brother went there. It's he went there a long time ago, though. I'm not going to lie. It's an extremely gay, woke university. You walk down the streets of the University of Toronto with a microphone. I've done it. People will call security on you. They won't do much because the security guards are new immigrants who don't speak English. Sorry about that, University of Toronto. But Jing Lai He says the PPC, despite only getting 0.7% of the vote, still managed to split the vote and cost the Conservatives up to 10 seats. Same argument as the other people, right? Actually, he said, had those 10 seats gone CPC, there would be easily another election in a year, and we would have ended with the Liberal reign. The PPC are Liberal operatives. So his argument is not that the Conservatives would have won. He said there would have been an election in another year. So we've gone from wanting to win the election, and how dare you split my vote because we would have won, to actually, even if you didn't split our vote, we wouldn't have won, but we would have had an election in another year, and surely we would have won that one with the same rhetoric and the same plan. And then he says the PPC are Liberal operatives. Even though they're further right-wing and they're what we say we are, even though we actually aren't, actual conservative people, or like whatever you want to call them, I don't care. I'm not in the People's Party of Canada. But they are actually further right-wing than the Conservatives, and they're what the Conservatives lie to people behind closed doors and say that they are. The Conservative operatives and the Conservative activists and supporters go around, and if you're part of any of these circles, you know this. The supporters and the activists go around and they say, we just got to play politics till we get in, and then we're going to enact this right-wing agenda. Never going to happen. First of all, you can't get in, and secondly, the people at the top don't actually believe in the things. Look at what they do and what they say. So PPC people are liberal operatives, according to this guy, and It's not about winning an election anymore. We would have just got a second chance or a fifth chance. If I didn't get knocked out. It's like, and I love Nate Diaz, and he would kick my ass. But every time Nate Diaz loses, he's like, if there was just a fucking sixth round, I would have kicked his ass. Like, every time you lose, if you just give me another chance, you just give me chance number 4, 5, and 6, I'll totally win that time. That's what the conservative activists are saying. And they can't stop. This is what they all do. And we'll get another complaint. Now, this guy's called the Pleb. I don't know him. I don't know what he does. But he is one of these people that are just... Everything Pierre Poilievre does is amazing. And I'll never speak out against anything that he doesn't do or does do incorrectly because I want a shot at the party. That's what he does. And he says, Mark Carney won this election the most disgusting way imaginable. Scaring your citizens into voting for you is not what a real leader does. A leader inspires his people and fights to improve his country, not fight to hold power. This is how I know Carney won't last long. And then he goes on to say, Pierre Poilievre needs to remain our leader. He delivered us more seats and turned our youth into conservatives. Pierre, if you need an advisor who understands your base better than anyone, I'm offering you my hand. If Pierre gets unleashed, we will win. Next time we'll win in a landslide, you guys. We'll just give Pierre another chance. And Pierre, I'm open to working for you. Do you see what I'm starting to show you here? They're all doing it because they want, you know, like, in movies when, you know, somebody thinks that somebody's about to die or they're falling, they're all hanging off a cliff or something, and the hand reaches through the smoke or through the clouds and it's reaching out and the person grabs it and they're saved. That's what they're hoping Pierre Poilievre will do, or, you know, his campaign manager, or maybe his greatest minority choice. And it's sad, isn't it? I think that there's a few DEI hires in the Conservative Party. I don't think Leslyn Lewis is one of them, frankly. She's actually a smart lady. But if you look at the people who Pierre surrounds himself with, they're not exceptional people. They're not especially smart. Some of them have made very, very bad decisions. And they're there for reasons why we know. They're hoping that these Conservative Party activists like this guy, they hope that somebody walks up to their door. It's probably going to be, at this point, a Sikh guy. They're hoping they're going to come to their door, knock on the door, holding a bag of money, reaching out their hand, and he says, "Welcome to the Conservative Party. You are now in the inner circle of the nerdiest of the nerds." And then they'll take that hand, and then as soon as they pull them through the walkway, it'll be made of clouds and ambient light, and they'll step through that, and then it'll cut to them just sitting in a conservative office. They'll all be in reclining chairs. They'll be vibrating because it's massaging them, and they'll be sitting at the end of a table. Pierre's at the other end in some sort of throne. He's got an angelic light on him because at this point he's a king anointed by, like, not just the Pope, but like anointed by God. You know how kings back in the day used to say they have a direct line to God because they're part of a monarchy? That's what Pierre's doing on the other side. And on this side, they're eating lobster and shrimp. They're sitting in their vibrating, reclining chairs with the other influencers. And Pierre's got all of his economic advisors and his strategic advisors sitting around him. They've just got a majority of 300 seats. And then Pierre says, "Wait a minute, everybody else shut up. Tell me what the pleb has to say. I need to know what these Twitter activists need to say. I need to know what their plans are." That's the plan here. Shill online, steal videos, say retarded stuff, agree with anything, never criticize anything until you get that tap on the shoulder where you're basically just like 90% of the time you're a footstool, but the rest of the time you're the top advisor, and that's how it's going to work. These conservative activists think they're going to be brought into the government. There are people who are, you know, run large companies and donate that think that they're going to get brought in as advisors to governments, specifically the conservative government. Because I don't know, you know, like, I've never been in these liberal circles. I've only been in the conservative circles. They're large donors, company owners, journalists, all these people. They think that they're going to be invited into the government. It never happens. It's just a pipe dream. It's like the person who thinks that if they hang around at the comedy club long enough, the owner's gonna hand it over to them. That's more likely to happen. That happened in one of the most famous martial arts studios in Canada, TriStar in Montreal. And one of their best guys, Firas Zahabi, was there for a really long time. One of the best guys. And the owner said, I don't have time for this business anymore. Let me sell it to you. That's something that can happen. You might want to go hang out at your local jiu-jitsu studio if you want to run something, but hanging around the Conservative Party and kissing their ass and bringing an industrial-sized barrel of lube around with you, that's not going to get you in the party. You have to be voted in, because if you don't have a vote in the House of Commons, it doesn't matter to them. Unless you can give them $1 billion. Maybe that's the exchange you're looking for. If you want to give Pierre $1 million, then I'm sure he'll talk to you. But just being a Twitter activist isn't going to do it. Why are we doing this, Andrew? Why are we going after all these people? Because they have spent years kissing ass and getting nothing done. If Pierre won, I wasn't going to say anything. I was going to say, obviously, something they're doing worked if they won. But this whole campaign, I said publicly, I said privately, I said to people in the news, I said this isn't going to work. I said not criticizing him for not coming out with actual policies isn't going to work. And they all say, we just got to get Carney out. We just got to get, it went for we just got to get Trudeau out we just got to get Carney out. And then we just got to lie about Carney. And then we just got to pretend until we get in office. Then we'll enact the right wing policy. That's never going to happen because they don't actually believe in that. I wasn't going to say anything if they won. But after 5 years of Conservative failure, these guys just go online and they just kiss ass. It's like they're a bunch of Swifties is what they are. And now that I think about it, the girls that say Taylor Swift is like right wing, they just ignore her political activism and all her viewpoints and the guy she's dating and all this, that, and the other. And they say she's still better than Sexy Red, still better than all these other people. It's all nonsense. You can only get away with it for so long until you're just a loser. So the next one. This is a guy named Rowan. Pierre Poilievre, and he's got a good following, 58,000. Pierre Poilievre is an amazing leader who did the unimaginable in spite of non-stop Trump rhetoric, the biased media apparatus, and the NDP, which was virtually eviscerated, all working against him. So was the NDP working against him? Yes. Was the media working against him? Yes. But this belief that it's because they were painted as being anti-Trump by the media is a lie. Not only were they accused of being anti-Trump, they went along with it. There was a race to the top between all the Canadian parties of who could say Orange Man bad the quickest. Jagmeet said, Orange Man bad, fascist. The Liberals say Orange Man bad, mean, anti-trans. And then the Conservatives say Orange Man bad, he wants to take Canada, 51st state, sovereignty, never going to happen, Orange Man bad. They all had their different tones of Orange Man bad. They all had different shades of orange that they went with. But Pierre didn't want to be criticized as Trump. He didn't want to be related to Trump. He didn't go on any podcast that could have possibly connected him to Trump. I was about to name them. One would be Theo Von. Two would be Joe Rogan. He wouldn't go on the Nelk Boys. He wouldn't go on Theo Von. He wouldn't go on Patrick Bet-David. He only did a podcast with Jordan Peterson, which was titled The Next Prime Minister of Canada. I wonder if that's still... I wonder if we can still find that. That would be great. I'll find that in a second. I wonder if they ever change the title. That would be sweet. But he didn't want to go on anything that could have possibly said this person, Trump went on their podcast. This person is a Trump supporter. This is a person that's Trump adjacent. They greatly feared being known as anything in relation to Trump because they have no spine. It's like I'm not asking you to think he's what do they call him? King, Emperor, God, Trump. I'm not asking you to do that. But is he better than the Liberals, the Democrats, the NDP? Is he closer to what you're doing than any of your major competitors? Yes, he is, obviously. But you're afraid to do that because you're not actually what you say you are. You're afraid to do that because you know that the boomers in Canada will have a problem with that, and that's the entire East Coast. Canada has a very high level of Trump derangement syndrome. And I know people who disagree with Trump. I know people who like him a lot less than I do. But they're not deranged about the difference between Trump and the liberals. They're not going to say that supporting Trump is or even saying that they want to work with Trump is some sort of red flag or the straw that breaks the camel's back, because the liberals run their party crazily. The NDP are just so insane that nobody even bothers with them anymore. And you're afraid to even appear adjacent to them. Jordan Peterson, Pierre, Poilievre, let's see. Canada's next prime minister, it's still up there. I'll send the link to myself so you can see it. But this is something we saw, something I saw, frankly, time and time again in the days after the election. Pierre was attacked as being a Trump supporter. The conservatives scared people into thinking that he was some sort of Trump light, and it's just something he couldn't overcome. They falsely accused him of being pro-Trump. And while he is not pro-Trump, he certainly didn't claim to be. They wanted to act like he was, the liberal media wanted to act like Pierre was some sort of amazing lover of Trump, but the conservatives didn't say that either. They said Trump's a piece of shit. So to complain that he was being painted as a Trump supporter, while also just being like, I also hate him, that's like, you're doing the same thing. You're doing the same thing that the other side did. It's not a winning strategy. I just wanted to show here again, Canada's next prime minister is what they titled that, and didn't work out too well. And just to show you what they were doing, this is the same guy. He said, and this is a joke, obviously, what an embarrassment, worst cult ever. So they want to blame being related to Trump as another reason that they lost. PPC, media, and Trump and Doug Ford are the reasons why the conservative lost in their mind. The reason why the Trump campaign posted this, and I'm not here to defend everything they post, but it was because they asked Trump, who do you think should be the Pope? And he said, I'd like to be the Pope. That would be a pretty good job. I like that. Maybe I should be Pope. But then he said, I think there's a pretty good cardinal out of New York. That guy could be the Pope. So it was a joke that they posted this for. And then it's a cult. Oh my God, it's a cult. Orange Man bad. This is why you lost. So conclusion here. You lost because you have no real messaging. And what do losers do as soon as they lose? Unless it's obvious, unless the referee made some horrible call, I understand. But I was telling these people this whole time, and I'm not, the most influential person, but I know a lot of these people. I know a lot of these people pushing these things that I'm talking about on much grander scales. And they did it anyways. They said Orange Man bad anyways. They said just wait and see till what he does when he's in office, and none of it happened. So you got to take him down. If we're supposed to believe in this thing where people are supposed to get fired for doing a bad job, that's the conservative influencers. That's the conservative leadership. You got to fire all these people because they're not manly men. They're not strong men. They're, as you can see right after, they just wanted to literally go up to Pierre and kiss him on his forehead and, let him punch them in the face. And you do a little curb stomping and then say, please, sir, can I have some more? That's what they did in the party and on social media immediately after he lost. You can't trust these people. They're losers. I'm sorry to tell you. Call me a loser if you want. I'll take it pretty well. But if I can call you a loser and say, and we can have this exchange where I say, look how wrong you were, and I told so to quote Ricky, then that'll be fine. But you can't have these people running around just being like, you're the greatest ever, and nothing you... That's exactly what they criticized Trump for. And then they go back and they say, it's okay that Pierre doesn't say anything. It's okay that he doesn't address the real problems. We've got a movement here, people. We've got a movement. We're going to open up... This next season of The Walking Dead is going to be the good one. It's going to come back to how it used to be in 2015. I promise you this time. Rick's coming back. There's going to be no more lesbian garbage groups. This time it's going to be good. The next season of Last of Us, that's going to be the good one. The Fallout show, it's coming back. That's how it works. These people need to be gotten rid of. They need to actually fight for something instead of just a position in the party. But that's why, alas, they are video stealers and have no original ideas. So enough of that. I want to go into some more traditional stuff about transgenderism. And I've had this argument with my friend many times about this show, The Last of Us. So The Last of Us stars this guy named Pedro Pascal. And what they did is they took... The Last of Us comes from a game, and they took a part of the game where there was this guy who was assumed to be gay. There's a character in the game that was assumed to be gay. He mentions a guy, and they ask him, did you used to be married to this guy? Or did you live with this guy? And he says like he used to, or something like that. And it was like one scene in one game where it was assumed that this guy was gay. So they took that scene, they made a whole story arc about it in the show, which is based off this game. And it was the Parks and Rec guy with the beard, Ron something. I don't remember his name. They made this whole episode for it. They made an entire episode about this gay couple that was only alluded to in the game. But as you will, right? People were like, what the hell is this? This, you basically made up 99% of what's happening here. He came out, called the whole fan base homophobic, right? If you have a problem with that. I told my friend about this who liked the show. He said it's just how it is. It's just how they wrote it, and I was like, they are purposely writing things in and purposely selecting actors who will go along with this stuff. And this was further exacerbated by the star of the show, and we'll look this up for you in a second. The star of the show is like a teenage girl who believes she's a boy or non-binary. Star of Last of Us. And all of these things, all these people are not just pushing these things because they believe in human rights or, all trans lives are human lives, whatever they say, whatever bullshit they do. Bella Ramsey is this girl's name. And the show is basically transgender propaganda. So we've got this girl they hired to be the star of this show. And she believes she's non-binary or whatever, so she's a girl that's going around portraying herself as androgynous, and this is a teenage girl, of course, so that's sick, and the fact that it's perpetuated is weird and creepy. And they've got, like I said, I'll just find his name for you. Instead of just not being able to put faces to names. The Last of Us, everybody. She was also in Game of Thrones, I guess, this girl. I had no idea. Where is this guy? Catherine O'Hara. Young Mazzino is somebody's name. That's good. You're going to recognize him as soon as I find him. And I'm going to recognize his name as soon as I see it, too. It's not Lamar Johnson. It's not Nico Parker. Nick Offerman is who I'm talking about. So they got Nick Offerman to come on because they like guys who pretend that they're super manly. They got him to come on and play this gay character that was super forced. They made up 99% of it. They made up this gay storyline that was barely in the video game at all. They pushed that. And then he gets mad when people have a problem with it because it has nothing to do with the game or the real story, right? And then they push out this Bella Thorne, or not, Bella, what's her name, everybody? We just lost it. Then they push out this Bella Ramsey girl who's who believes she's non-binary and all this stuff, and this Pedro Pascal guy comes onto the show and he defends her because everybody's like, this is weird that a child is non-binary. And then what does Pedro Pascal have? Well, of course he's sacrificing, allegedly, Your Honor, but he's got this brother who also pretends that he's a woman. And this isn't a guy He looks pretty young. Let's give him that, right? He's got all this plastic surgery. He looks pretty young. But he's actually in his late 30s, and he is an actor, too. What a surprise. And he's Pedro Pascal's younger sister, as they say in People, who's an actor and who grew up in Chile, of course, and born in 1992. So the person's 33 years old. All of a sudden, they were transgender in their 30s in 2021. So 30 years old, all of a sudden, we're transgender right around this time where the show's coming out. Pedro Pascal supports it. And what do you know? He's also a staunch critic of J.K. Rowling, who is against men being, or transgender women being in women's sports and in women's spaces, and he called her a heinous loser because she stands up for actual women. So my point is that we can get so far down the road where people will believe, all of this stuff is a coincidence, but The Last of Us is actually just literally propaganda. They took a show that was very popular, they found a sliver in it, just a sliver in it, to make an entire story arc about homosexuality. And I'm not just going to sit here and be like, oh, everything with a gay man in it is completely bad, but they purposely put this in out of nowhere. And then they have a girl who's allegedly non-binary. Then they have the main star who's playing her father has some sort of weird support for this sort of thing. And then it turns out that he has a brother who is transgender, and he also criticizes people who are pro keeping men out of women's sports. And it's like, you couldn't have concocted more of a scenario here where you're pushing a certain agenda. And that's all I want to say about that, is that these people they're not just good people. They're not just coming out in defense of this community or this section of the population that's extremely vulnerable and oppressed. These are people who are pushing this for their own weird belief system. You don't just happen to have a transgender brother and then have be in a show where the co-star believes she's a woman or believes she's non-binary, and then also they create a gay story arc out of nowhere. Like, this isn't just a coincidence. Somebody has to sit there and write this. Somebody has to cast these people. This doesn't just happen. This isn't just how the story goes. And if you want more examples of this, I thought of this, okay? Robert De Niro hates Trump, says he's a fascist, how he treats transgender people. Oh, Robert De Niro's daughter is now transgender. The 29-year-old spoke to them, an LGBTQ magazine, about hormone therapy and finally embracing her femininity. So his daughter comes out as transgender. It's hard to tell with their speak if this is a male or a female. Describes herself as a late bloomer. So this is a Robert De Niro's 29-year-old son. It believes he's a woman. It's interesting that this all happens all around the same time, not when they're 15, but when it's popular to do so, you might say. And it also is interesting that Robert De Niro hates the Trump administration and what they're doing to transgender people and human rights and all this sort of stuff, because they've all been indoctrinated into this thing. And they're fighting for it for a reason. They're in this camp for a reason. They've got some sort of obsession with this for a reason. Why do they all have transgender sons? Why do they all work with transgender people? This is a segment of the population that's absurdly small. Okay? Rosie O'Donnell hates Trump, moves to Ireland, has a non-binary child who she says would have been hated on and lambasted and criticized if they stayed in America. Rosie O'Donnell, a lesbian who hates Trump, as a non-binary child who's 12 years old. Are we connecting any of these dots here? Why is it that all these and the conservative supporters are going to call me transgender? I feel it now. They're going to clip this and say, look at his transphobic remarks right after. It's going to be great, because that's the stuff they actually believe in. Melissa Lantsman, Trans Day of Visibility. Who's the female? Is it Michelle Rempel Garner? Bisexual Awareness Day or something like that. These are the things that they care about actually. But it's no coincidence that all these weird left-wing ideologies are intertwined, and they're always connected when they say that all these people are marginalized, and we want to protect trans youth, and trans rights are human rights. When they say all these things, it's because they've got a connection to it. If it's a super obscure thing, they've got a connection to it. Why are people so concerned about illegal immigrants? Why are they so concerned about legal immigrants who've also committed murder, robbery, what have you, being deported from the United States? They don't want to give up their slave labor. They've advocated for legal immigration. They've paid for them to be for their lawyers' fees. When it's an extremely small percentage of people that are for something, that being illegal immigration and men and women's sports, they've got a connection somehow. You got to be suspicious of these people. And Rosie O'Donnell, who says it's pretty wonderful the people are so loving and kind and welcoming, and I'm very grateful. It's just moving to a more liberal place. You're not moving to a place where it's like actually better. You're just moving to a place where more people agree with you. So of course you're going to like it more. I don't understand the difference. Why didn't she just live in California, where they're pretty dead set on liberalism there? But it's all a publicity stunt. Oh, my daughter's non-binary. I needed to mention that. Who wants to talk about their child in the media? Who wants to just give up their 12-year-old child to be a subject of media articles? Oh, by the way, my brother's transgender, and he's an actor, by the way. It has nothing to do with me acting with transgender people and promoting it. Oh, by the way, my son is transgender. It has nothing to do with me promoting transgenderism and saying it's mean of anyone else to be against it. It'd be like saying, like, how dare you guys want to stop electric cars? This is preposterous. And it turns out I own a ton of stock in an electric car company. It's these things that nobody wants to point out, especially in Canada. And they just all take it as coincidence. And this is part of the problem with Canada. We do not fight back against anything. We just say, that would be mean if you were to speak against it. That would be mean. Can't do it. Can't speak against it. We used to like when people were mean in this country. Now they're all pussies. We can't do it anymore. This is the true Canada, and I think I want to leave it on this. The true Canada can be found in a couple examples here about what just goes unsaid and supported in Canada. And this is a TikTok of a small business prop up at Union Station. This is promoted by TikTok Canada about the biggest train station in the country. This is what we've got going for us.
I think it's super helpful to have a local TikTok Canada team that is boots on the ground here in Canada, knowing that you're there to support us and giving us these opportunities. That's amazing.
Canada to the world, right?
There we go. I think it's super helpful.
So it's this faux Canadian thing. We love Canada all of a sudden because Orange Man bad. It's this faux patriotism that doesn't actually mean anything. And what is it? And once we're doing pro-Canada stuff, what is it? TikTok, morbidly obese liberals. This woman's like days away from, I don't want to say it. This woman's, they had to do that take like 8 times because she ran out of breath. This is why the video is like 8 seconds long. This is what we have in Canada. When we mean pro-Canada and, standing up for Canadian businesses, what we actually mean is Trump is evil. You need to be transgender, and also everything you do has to be run by immigrants who just got here. So if it's not one of these things, if it's not Orange Man bad transgenderism and gayness, or foreign people taking jobs at a much lower wage than Canadians, that's not Canadian. That's what they mean when you hear in Canada, go Canada, go. It's go anything that's actually politically acceptable for far left people to say is good. Because you wouldn't be able to just get away with patriotism, just like in the U.S. when people fly American flags. That person seems racist to me. That person seems like a white supremacist. In Canada, you're only allowed to do that if it's for a left-wing cause. And it's this weird corporatism that came out when the tariffs were talked about. Still didn't happen, by the way. I'd like to point that out. People are promoting the tariffs still. Still didn't happen. And it's this weird marketing campaign, just like the Amazon, just like the pride flag, all this stuff. Patriotism has become a marketing campaign for liberal policies, and it's 100% of the time used to promote left-wing inclusion narratives and extreme mass migration narratives. And I want to leave you on this one for real. Something that would never happen in Canada. This is somebody singing at a gas station. This would never happen in Canada. If this was Canada, it'd be an Indian guy sitting in the middle of the store watching you as you make your transactions. Something that's actually happened to one of my friends. He sent me a video. There was an Indian owner sitting in the middle of a convenience store in a gas station in a lawn chair watching people do their transactions.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. Casey and JoJo, really?
Of course. Woo!
I don't even know if I remember all the lyrics. Some new people over here tonight.
They all came to see you.
I will never find another lover sweeter than you, sweeter than you. And I will never find another lover more precious than you, more precious than you. Girl, you are close to me, you're like my mother. Close to me, you're like my father. Close to me, you're like my brother. Close to me, you're like my brother. Yeah! And you are the only one of my everything. And for you, this song I sing all my life. I pray for someone like you.
Now, would that be annoying if it happened more than once? Maybe. Singing, people who can sing good are respected, but would that happen in Canada? No. The best you are getting in Canada is somebody being on their cell phone, extremely loud on speakerphone, screaming in a different language at you while everything costs $15. And that's the kind of Canada, we've done this before, right? That's the kind of Canada I want to live in. $16 for a bag of Doritos while Indian guys yell on their phone at 7 p.m. throughout till 9 p.m. is the entire time they're in the store. They don't care that you're there. They don't care that everybody could hear them. They don't care that if everybody did that, nobody would be able to hear anything. That's the kind of Canada I want to live with. That's the kind of place and people I want to be in. Go to the gas station. Sure, it's too expensive. Sure, you can't afford anything in there. But is there an Indian guy sitting in the middle of the store in a chair or in a wheelchair because his family brought him over to use our social healthcare system to their benefit while having not paid taxes in it for as long as everybody else? Of course that's the Canada you want to live in. While the guy who checks you out for your overpriced gas is actually doing a personal phone call while he talks to you, so he's not actually talking to you. He's just doing vague motions to you. This happened to me 2 weeks ago, by the way. He's just making vague motions to you while other people are lining up behind you because he's taking so long because he's on the phone. But that's not your problem. That's actually our problem. That's the kind of Canada I want, and I'll be damned if you take it away from me. Pierre, Poilievre. Thanks for watching. Remember, I wouldn't lie to you except for maybe this once.